The music was deafening, the chandeliers glimmered like frozen stars, and the room was filled with laughter that tasted of champagne and deceit. Amid the golden light and hollow compliments stood Seraphina Vale, a woman the world envied, CEO of Vale Innovations, one of the most powerful tech companies in the country. Her emerald gown shimmered as flashes from cameras painted her face with artificial light. To everyone there, she was perfection, a symbol of success, confidence, and control. But inside, she was unraveling. The walls seemed to pulse, her chest tightened, and her vision blurred. She smiled one last time for the crowd, her voice trembling as she raised a glass, and then the world tilted. Gasps filled the air. The glass shattered. And Seraphina Vale, multi-millionaire, icon, untouchable queen of industry, collapsed to the marble floor. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of humanity to heal, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Light of Kindness. Your support helps us share more stories that remind the world that compassion still matters. When Seraphina opened her eyes again, the glow of chandeliers was gone. Instead, a flickering yellow light buzzed above her. The scent of oil and metal replaced perfume and roses. She was lying on a makeshift bed, a blanket that smelled faintly of detergent draped over her. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then, she heard a soft humming, the off-key tune of a child. Turning her head, she saw a little girl sitting on the floor beside her, drawing on a scrap of cardboard with a stubby blue crayon. The girl looked up, her big brown eyes bright and curious. "You're awake," she said with a grin missing 2 front teeth. "Daddy said you were sleeping funny." Seraphina's voice cracked. Where am I?" The girl pointed to a half-open door where sunlight spilled in, catching dust motes in the air. Beyond it, Seraphina saw a cluttered but neat garage, an old car on a lift, tools hanging in careful rows, and the faint hum of a radio playing a country tune. She tried to sit up, and pain lanced through her head. The girl quickly grabbed her hand. "Daddy said don't move too fast. You fell." Moments later, the door opened wider, and a man walked in, wiping grease from his hands. He was tall, with tousled dark hair, a few days' stubble, and eyes the color of a stormy sky, steady, calm, and quietly kind. "You're awake," he said softly, setting the rag aside. "You passed out near the old bridge last night. Looked like you'd been running, maybe hit your head. I didn't want to leave you there, so I brought you here." Seraphina blinked, confusion swirling in her mind. The last thing she remembered was the party, the dizziness, the crowd. How had she ended up near a bridge? "You brought me here," she asked weakly. He nodded. "Name's Caleb Turner. This little troublemaker's Mira." The girl giggled and waved. "Hi again." Seraphina's heart thudded. A CEO of her stature waking up in a mechanic's garage beside a child, it was unthinkable. She reached for her purse, but it wasn't there. Her phone, her jewelry, her heels, all gone. Panic rose in her throat. "My things, where are they?" Caleb raised his hands in calm reassurance. "Relax. They're in that box by your bed. I didn't touch anything. You fainted. You needed rest." For the first time in years, someone spoke to her not as a powerful woman, not as a figure to impress, but as a person in need. And that simple act of kindness cracked something open inside her. She stayed silent for a long while, just watching Mira draw. A soft melody hummed from the radio, and sunlight filtered through the dusty window, painting everything gold. For the first time in a long time, Seraphina felt safe. Hours passed. Caleb offered her water and a sandwich, which she ate in hesitant silence. He didn't pry. He didn't ask who she was or why she'd been out there alone in a gown that probably cost more than his car. He just said, "You look tired. Sometimes people carry too much weight. The body gives up before the soul does." His words, simple and raw, struck her deeper than any speech or therapy session ever had. When Seraphina finally looked at herself in the cracked mirror near the workbench, she almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. The perfect hair was tangled, the makeup smudged, the expensive jewelry dulled. She looked human. And that scared her more than anything. She spent the night again in the garage because she couldn't bring herself to leave. Mira insisted on telling her bedtime stories, her own versions of fairy tales where everyone got second chances. Caleb fixed an old heater to keep her warm. The world outside still turned, but in that tiny garage, time seemed to pause. The next morning, her driver, an assistant, had finally tracked her down after tracing her phone's emergency signal. Cameras followed as she left the garage, heels clicking, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Reporters swarmed, asking why she had been there. She brushed them off, retreating to her penthouse high above the city. But something inside her had changed. Days turned into weeks, and Seraphina couldn't forget the garage, the smell of oil, the sound of Myra's laughter, or Caleb's quiet voice saying, "Sometimes the body gives up before the soul does." Her empire felt cold now. Meetings, mergers, boardrooms, they all seemed meaningless. She realized she had built a life of glass walls, beautiful but empty. One afternoon, during a meeting, she suddenly stopped mid-sentence. She looked around the boardroom, suits, screens, endless numbers, and said quietly, "What are we really building here? Machines that help people, or people who are becoming machines?" No one understood what she meant. But Seraphina did. That night, she made a decision that would shock everyone. She visited Caleb's garage again, this time dressed simply in jeans and a white shirt. Mira ran to her, hugging her legs as if they had been friends forever. Caleb looked surprised but smiled faintly. "Didn't expect to see you again," he said. "I didn't expect to come back," she admitted. "But I think I left something here. Maybe myself." Over time, Seraphina began visiting often. She'd bring food, tools, sometimes books for Mira. She learned to fix small things, hands once used to signing contracts now tightening bolts and wiping grease. It was messy, but it felt real. Caleb spoke little, but when he did, his words always carried meaning. She learned that he had once been an engineer before losing his wife in an accident. He'd left the city to raise Mira and find peace in simple living. In his silence, Seraphina found calm. In Myra's laughter, she found warmth. The emptiness that had consumed her for years slowly began to fade. She started a new foundation through her company, Project Revive, focused on helping struggling small businesses like Caleb's. The press called it a PR miracle, but for Seraphina, it was personal redemption. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the garage in amber hues, Mira tugged her sleeve. "Miss Sarah, do you believe in angels?" she asked innocently. Seraphina smiled faintly. "I think sometimes they look like people we least expect." She glanced at Caleb, who was wiping oil from his hands and watching them with quiet affection. For the first time, Seraphina didn't feel like a CEO or a millionaire or a woman trying to prove her worth. She just felt home. Months later, she hosted another event, not in a ballroom, but in that same garage, transformed with lights, laughter, and the hum of community. Mechanics, families, volunteers, all gathered as Seraphina announced her initiative to fund hundreds of local workshops and repair shops across the state. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but it was a different kind of trembling, not from weakness, but from gratitude. She caught Caleb's eyes in the crowd and smiled. He nodded, his gaze steady and proud. Mira ran up to hug her afterward, whispering, "I told Daddy you were a good princess." Seraphina laughed through her tears. The woman who once ruled from glass towers had found her heart among oil stains and wrenches. And maybe, she thought, that was where true wealth really lived, not in money or power, but in moments that make you feel alive again. If this story has touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Light of Kindness. Every act of kindness creates ripples we can't always see, but together, they can change lives. And before you go, here's a special request. Comment below what kindness or second chance changed your life the most. Your story might inspire someone who needs hope today. As the sun rose over the small garage the next morning, Seraphina watched Caleb and Mira laugh together while fixing an old truck. She breathed in deeply, feeling the scent of oil and sunlight and peace. For the first time in her life, she didn't want to escape. She didn't need applause or headlines. She just needed this, a place where broken things could be made whole again, including herself.